What's up, tennis fans? Sleepy Picks here. We had the rest of our round of 16 matches wrap up in at the Munich Open. Let's take a look at some of these quarterfinal picks. Let's look at the draw. And here's a look at Zverev's half of the draw. First quarter we're going to talk about is Zverev against Cerundolo. Let's take a look at the Zverev Diallo match that happened. Both of these round of 16 matches for these guys were very straightforward and not a lot of resistance from the opponent. Zverev against Diallo, this was a very straightforward match for him. He was able to neutralize that big serve of Diallo and the serve plus one of Diallo, just using the clay, how slow the clay was for him. He's stepping so far back on the return of serve, putting all these balls back in play. So no free points from Diallo. Plus, Diallo not able to really open the court up with that serve plus one. The Zverev speed on full display today. We did see Diallo try to come to net a little bit more. And remember, we did talk about that, how he kind of needed to change something up just to, because he wasn't going to be able to win these clay court rallies against Zverev. Or at least I felt like he wasn't going to be able to win those. So trying to come to net, I think, was a good thing for Diallo. Obviously, he's not as comfortable up there as he is kind of roping some of his ground strokes, but at least there was an effort to make a change in the strategy here. Unfortunately, nothing really worked for Diallo, and it was a 6-1, 6-2 win for Zverev. Cerundolo, very similar result against Bodek van de Zandschulp, and the first set was a little bit weird. I think it was 3 or 4 exchanges of breaks, just back and forth, back and forth. Cerundolo played a couple of really sloppy games, but the thing is, for as sloppy as Cerundolo played, Zandschulp was by far way sloppier in his numbers. I mean, he was just missing everything. He just couldn't connect. There were so many times where he would have the court open and he would just miss the ball wide. He would try his redirects on his forehands and he would just miss the ball wide. Just it was hard to watch, honestly, because we know Bodek van de Zandschulp, especially coming into this match, he's played much better tennis than what we saw today. Maybe he was trying to force the issue against a guy like Cerundolo, who he knows can really hurt him with that forehand, but I just didn't see anything that showed me like a lot of promise that we could take a guy like Bodek to beat maybe one of these top guys on the clay. So just a really tough day at the office for him. A 6-3, 6-0 win for Cerundolo to advance through. Towards the end of that second set, it just really felt like Bodek knew where it was going, and that was basically curtains. There wasn't really much of a fight there at the end. 6-3, 6-0, Cerundolo advances. Looking at this head-to-head for Zverev and Cerundolo, it is 4-3 for Zverev, and we did just have a matchup in Miami, if you guys remember that. In the quarterfinals, it was a 6-1, 6-2 win for Zverev, but I do think maybe there was a little bit of a health issue for Cerundolo. I can't remember. He was coming off that tough three-setter against Medvedev. You remember that? That was a really weird match where it was like each of them just like kind of giving the match back to the other one, and then a lot of back and forth there. They have played 3 times on clay, and those are the 3 wins of Cerundolo. So we got to keep that in mind. Their first match. Let's actually go through all of these matches. I know it's 7 matches, but they're all as recent as 2024. So I think we can learn a lot from these. In Madrid, they played in 2024 in the fourth round. It was a 6-3, 6-4 win for Cerundolo. In Buenos Aires, they played in 2025 in the quarterfinals. It was a 3-6, 6-3, 6-2 win for Cerundolo. In Madrid, they played on the clay again in 2025, and it was a 7-5, 6-3 fourth round win for Cerundolo. Back-to-back wins in the fourth round of Madrid for Cerundolo there. Then they played in Toronto, and Zverev able to get his first win against Cerundolo, but it was by retirement, 6-4, 1-0, retired in the fourth round. Then they played in Davis Cup a few months later in November of 2025, and it was a 6-4, 7-6 indoor hardcourt win for Zverev. Then they played in Australia this year, and it was a 6-2, 6-4, 6-4 fourth round win for Zverev. and most recently it was a 6-1, 6-2 win in Miami quarterfinals. So Zverev's only won one set on the clay against Cerundolo compared to Cerundolo's 6 sets. That does concern me a little bit because obviously I want to pick Zverev. I just don't think Cerundolo's playing that good of tennis. Let's take a look at so we have Zverev coming in. He's 5-1 right now on the clay, making a run out to the Monte Carlo semifinals, losing 6-1, 6-4 to Sinner. But he was able to beat Garin, Bergs, and Fonseca on the way there. That Fonseca match was a really tricky match for him, but he was able to get through that. And then coming into Munich, he was able to beat Kekmanovic, get the revenge spot for that Acapulco loss, and then a straight set win over Diallo, who he played to 4 sets in Australia. So a nice turnaround there for him to just straight set a guy like that. Zverev was 18-7 last year on the clay, 23-6 the year before. This guy does extremely well on this clay surface, and obviously we remember he's had some really solid French Open runs as well. Cerundolo, on the other hand, is sitting at 10-3 on the clay. We know he played that South American swing, and he was able to have some success there, winning in Buenos Aires. Then Cerundolo was 21-11 last year, 21-13 the year before. His run in Monte Carlo was not as expected. It was a very disappointing straight set loss to Mahach. Able to beat Tsitsipas in 2 tough sets, but lost in straights to Mahach. He comes over here. He beats Sumit Nagal 6-2, 6-2, and then Van de Zandschulp 6-3, 6-0. So he has yet to really be pushed here. This is obviously against Zverev. This is going to be a little bit of a step up here for him. I just want to take a look at his in Buenos Aires. He was able to beat Delian in straights, Kopriva in straights. Etcheverry, we know Etcheverry's been playing good tennis. He lost in straights to Cerundolo, and then he beat Darderi in straights. And these were so he goes on a run of 8 straight sets to win Buenos Aires. His body was really hurting against in Rio, and he was able to get through Navoni, who we saw has made a pretty decent run or is able to win Bucharest. So he's having a pretty decent clay season right now too. And then he lost to Taranti, who this was a little bit of a concern for him. And I think Sorno was a little bit angry that they didn't postpone his first round match to the Wednesday, which sometimes they do, but you have to special request it. Then Cerundolo was able to go over to Chile, and he beat Moeller in straights, Nava 6-1, 6-1, and then lost a head scratcher to Hanfman. We see him go over to Indian Wells, losing to Draper. Okay, that's acceptable. Draper, the defending champ there. And then going out to Miami, where he lost to Zverev. But he got the revenge over Taranti, 6-4, 6-2, and got a nice 3-set win over Medvedev. I gotta go with Zverev. I just feel like he's playing the better tennis right now. I do think this is going to be a much trickier match than the Miami match. I mean, 6-1, 6-2, that kind of surprised me a little bit. But at the same time, we know Cerundolo's had some of these ailments that have just held him back. Particularly, I think it was the back issues that he had in Rio, where his back was so stiff he could barely serve and barely move. And once he got down a break there to Taranti, he just threw in the towel. But we know this guy's a fighter. He's going to give it everything he has. If his forehand is on, it'll be a very tough day for Zverev. But I just feel like Zverev's been grinding out some of these matches. Even that match, obviously the match against Kekmanovic, but like that tough match against Garin, where it looked like he was all but out, down a double break in the 3rd set. He's able to come back and win it 7-5. That's the kind of guy that I like to pick and that I trust is going to win a tough match. And I think Zverev's going to win this. I think it's going to be straight sets as well. I don't know if Cerundolo can take a set here just yet. We haven't seen great tennis yet from Cerundolo on this European clay court swing. So give me Zverev in straight sets. And here's a look at Zverev's half of the draw. Let's talk about that Cobolli Kopriva match. And Kopriva has the head-to-head against Cobolli, and it doesn't surprise me because he's really bothered. He's got that style that's gonna bother Cobolli. Cobolli likes to play against, your standard tennis player. Berg's a great example of that. A guy that, yeah, he's got some big shots, but overall Cobolli's just gonna be able to outgun him and out rally him in most of the time. Now he's going up against a guy that likes to take the ball a little bit early, that likes to hit these weird flat shots on the clay. And Cobolli's going to have to figure out a way to keep Kopriva a little bit off balance. I think if he's not able to do that, this is going to be a grinded out type match. And I just have to go with the guy that has a head-to-head against Cobolli, the guy that has looked pretty well on the clay. He's had some decent matches, able to get through Angle in 3 sets. I mean, that match was a little bit iffy. He probably should have won that in straights. And then gets through Darderi, who had a little bit of a breakdown towards the end of that 3rd set. But overall, a nice match for Kopriva to win. I think he's going to win this match. It's probably going to be a 3-setter no matter what. So give me Kopriva to advance in 3. Looking at the half overall, I mean, we got 4 guys remaining. And obviously, for Cerundolo, this would be huge to make a dent on the European clay. We know he's had a good win in Buenos Aires, his home tournament. I think that got a very big weight off his shoulders, but we haven't really seen much good tennis from him since. So looking for him to kind of turn it on here. If he's able to get a win over Zverev, that's going to give him a lot of confidence, especially going into Rome. Zverev, of course, we haven't seen this guy really lose to anyone other than Sinner and Alcaraz. So I think it'll take a very special performance from someone to take him out. Although we've seen him come close. Kekmanovic came close, Garin came close. But again, Zverev's just able to go up against these guys and take them out even when the match is very close. We like seeing that. Then you got Cobolli. Again, like Cobolli having that great run in Acapulco on the hard court. We talked about how his season seemed to be very different from last year, losing to Pennington Jones on the indoor courts, really struggling through some matches, and then he goes into Acapulco and wins, beating Tiafoe in straight sets. Hopefully, if he does something like that here on the clay, he can start to build the confidence a little bit. Maybe not win, but even get to the finals here. Especially if he's able to beat somebody like Kopriva, that would be a much needed win for Cobolli, because somebody that has owned you in the head-to-head on this surface, and we talked about the sets, like all the sets that Cobolli's lost to Kopriva have been like 6-1 or 6-0 or 6-2. That means a lot. So for him, if he's able to beat him, I think that gives him a lot of confidence there. And of course, Kopriva, I mean, for him to get through this tournament here, you look at Darderi, Cobolli, Zverev, Cerundolo, and you think, how am I going to get through to the finals here? He's 2 wins away from doing so. I think he's going to beat Cobolli here. I feel like Cobolli's game isn't there just yet. I really like the way the way that I saw Kopriva kind of gut out that win against Darderi. Neither guy was playing that great, but when Darderi kind of slipped a little bit mentally, he just got right on top of him and took advantage of that. So I think he's going to advance. He'll probably lose to Zverev, but it might be a tough semifinal match for Zverev because it's a very different type of style. But let me know what you guys think. Let's move on to the next half of the draw. Let's look at Shelton's half of the draw. Quarterfinal match we're going to talk about is Shapovalov against Molcan. This is going to be a really interesting match. We did pick the Molcan. I think that was an upset over Altmaier. We picked that correctly. Let's talk about the Shapo match first. Able to tough out a close first set where both guys had chances to kind of get a little bit of a lead in that set, not able to capitalize on them. The Shapo ground strokes were most impressive on the clay today for me. He came in a little bit, a few shots at the beginning of the set, misfiring a few, but he was opening the court up so well against Marijan. And I just love the backhand. He's taking the backhand so early. He's just pummeling it. It's coming through the court aggressively. And then he has that forehand, that lefty forehand where he's able to really pull you off the court. So Shapo looked really good against Marijan today, and we did pick Marijan in that match, and obviously, guys, why did I do that? I keep telling you, don't pick Marijan in anything. I don't think but he was able to come through Tsitsipas, and I felt like maybe this was a Marijan draw here, but it ended up being a Shapo draw. And he looks good. Even some of the touch plays that Marijan got him in, with the drop shots coming in, moving forward, Shapo looked pretty solid. He looked pretty confident. Obviously he knows his way around the net a little bit, so I was impressed. I thought he looked pretty good. Now he takes on a guy in Molcan who's able to take out Altmaier, and this match, guys, this was probably the best match that I watched today. Um, Maybe not. Yeah, just today. But it was very entertaining. I mean, these guys playing like real, just gutsy clay court tennis. I mean, this was a matchup of two guys that are playing extremely good tennis on the clay. We talked about how Altmaier, maybe hasn't had as much success on the clay as Molcan has this year. I think Molcan coming in with the stronger record, but Altmaier able to make it to that Naples final and losing to Medjedovic, but he still looked really solid. And then we saw him against Prismic, and I thought he looked really good there. Just able to play some aggressive tennis, but Molcan, on the other hand, he's got just this really savviness about him, just getting through some of these shots and being able to use his topspin and coming through with a lot of the balls and just making Altmaier hit one extra shot every time. And we saw some misses from Altmaier as well. There are a lot of chances too, Altmaier being on the offense and just missing the ball by a couple of inches. It was a very entertaining match, and honestly, that second set could have gone either way. I felt like it was going to go 3 sets. I thought Altmaier was going to win that set and maybe turn it around a little bit, but good on Molcan to again get out of this match in straight sets, very similar to what he was able to do in that first set against Bublik, where it started to seem like Bublik was getting a little bit of momentum, but Molcan able to just shut the door in that first set and win in straights. And same thing here, he was able to shut the door against Altmaier and win in straights. Now, looking at the head-to-head of Shapo and Molcan, it is 1-0 for Shapo. They met back in 2022 in the second round of Doha. Now, we remember Doha, obviously those courts play much faster than the courts here in Munich. It was a 6-4, 6-0 win for Shapo. He was the number 1 seed. Shapo's coming in with a 2-1 clay record. He was 2-5 on the clay last year, 5-6 the year before. Molcan, on the other hand, 10-2 now on the clay, 38-10 last year, 10-11 the year before. Molcan coming through the qualifiers here, beating Carballes Baena, Emilio Nava, and then coming into the main draw, beating Bublik and Altmaier. Very nice. So, strangely enough, he dropped the first set he played in qualifiers, 6-0 to Carballes Baena. He has not dropped a set since. So go figure, right? Drops the first set 6-0 and has not dropped another set since. He's come close to dropping one 7-6 set to Nava he won, and then a 7-6 against Altmaier, where Altmaier, I believe, did have some set points as well. Molcan has about 6.5 hours on the court right now. Will we see him fade a little bit? I'm not sure, because we talked about in Bucharest, I think he was right around like the 6 hour, 7 hour range. And I said, like, I felt like maybe the legs would get a little bit tired against Navoni, and I felt like he was still very competitive in that third set, able to push Navoni to 3 in the quarterfinal loss. Shapo, on the other hand, able to beat Griekspoor in 3 sets, a pretty solid win there, and then beating Marijan today in straights. He did play Alexander Blocks in Monte Carlo last week, and that was a tough 3-setter. A very nervy win there for Alexander Blocks, but we know Blocks has been playing pretty solid tennis, gave Shelton all he could handle, and then also gave Demonar all he could handle in Monte Carlo, losing in straights, but it was an extremely close straight set match. Shapo hasn't looked great since Dallas, where he played Ben Shelton, and wouldn't this be great to maybe get a Shapo Shelton semifinal again, a rematch on the clay, where he played Ben Shelton and he lost in 3 sets, 7-6 in the 3rd set. So tough loss. We know Shapo really enjoys the indoor hard court. He's 89-53 overall on the indoor hard court. 79-51 though on the clay, so not too shabby there either. Had a little bit more success earlier in his career on the clay than he has recently. Molcan 209-112 on the clay there, and only 33-36, losing record on the indoor hard court. This is going to be a really tricky matchup here because I kind of have a feeling that Molchan's going to win this match. I'm the one thing that's holding me back are how is Molcan going to handle this, because I think Shapo's going to have a lot of the firepower. The only thing is I feel like Molchan's going to make him hit 1 or 2 extra shots. And how many times today against Meriden did we see Shapo missing that kind of winning blow, that final shot? He would miss the forehand maybe a little bit wide, the backhand a little bit wide. I feel like we might see that again. Like, Molchan's going to make you come up with some shots and try to hit it past him. He's got that savviness. He's got the drop shots. He's going to really make Shapo play some tough clay court tennis tomorrow. And I was impressed with what I saw from Shapo. I think he's hitting the ground strokes really clean. And obviously, like if the clay's moving a little bit faster, it's going to be warmer tomorrow. So if the clay's moving a little bit faster, maybe he can take advantage of that, use some serve +1, some return +1 against Molcan, and not really let him get into a rhythm on the clay. But I don't know if I really see something like that happening. I'm going to pick Molcan to advance here. I think it's going to be 3 sets, but give me Molcan over Shapo in 3. Here's a look at Shelton's half of the draw, and let's talk a little bit about that Fonseca-Shelton quarterfinal. We did do a full breakdown of this in our quarterfinals part 1, so you can check that out as well if you want the full breakdown. But just the cliff notes here, I think that the Fonseca aggression and that forehand are going to be able to dominate over Shelton. The 2 questions that I always ask when you're playing Shelton are, number 1, are you going to hold serve easily? Fonseca's been doing that. He did that against Rinderknecht. He's done that against Tabilo. So I think that's a big plus, because if you don't give Shelton a lot of chances on the return, you might have some chances on his service games. But if you give him some looks on your return games, he's going to gain some confidence. He's going to start taking his chances. But I don't think Fonseca's going to do that. I think he's going to hold pretty easily, and I think he's going to push Shelton on his service games. And then number 2, how is Fonseca going to neutralize that big serve of Shelton? Also the serve +1. And I think his return has been pretty solid. I like what Fonseca has been doing against some of these guys. Obviously, Rinderknecht with a big first serve, but not the type of serve that he's going to see against Shelton. So it's going to be a little bit different here, but I think he's going to be able to manage the powerful ground strokes of Fonseca is kind of where I'm starting to, I'm planting my flag and thinking that this is the part of the game that's going to dominate Shelton. We saw Shelton play a little bit defensively against Emilio Nava towards the end, and we saw him in a defensive mode against Alexander Blocks towards the end of the 2nd set. So honestly, guys, if this goes 3 sets, it's going to be Fonseca. For me, I think it's probably going to be Fonseca in straights, but I got to pick him to advance over Shelton. I feel like he's the better clay quarter. Shelton's played pretty clutch. A lot of clutch points against Alexander Blocks. A lot of serve and volley points, forcing the issue in some break points. So if we see that again, maybe he can hold on to his serve, but I think Fonseca is going to push him too far, and he's going to get that win in straights. Looking at this draw as a whole, let's talk about some of these storylines. We got Shapo, who really hasn't had much success only 2 wins last year on the clay. He has now matched that. Is he going to surpass that win count in this tournament? That would be very impressive for him to come out here. A guy that historically hasn't been great on the clay, hasn't had a winning season on the clay since 2021. This would be a very big confidence boost for Shapo. Then you have Molcan, who's trying to make a little bit of a comeback. Molcan's been ranked as high as 38 in the world. So, this guy's now sitting around 166 he's at. So, a lot of opportunity there for him. Maybe if he's able to get out to the semis or final of a 500, big opportunity for Molcan. He's playing good tennis, sitting at 10-2 right now on the clay. So we'll see what happens there. Fonseca again, he seems to have flipped a switch here, and he's playing very solid tennis. We'll see how he does here against Shelton. This would be a big win for him, even though it's on the clay. And yes, we would give him a little bit of an advantage over Shelton. It's still a big win to beat Ben Shelton either way. And then you have Ben Shelton, who was able to make it out to the finals of this tournament last year. He found some rhythm on the clay, some confidence on the clay, and that helped him in that French Open run as well. Will he be able to make it out here to another final? I think he's going to have to, if he does, he's going to have to play some really tough clay court tennis because he's got Fonseca and then potentially Shapo or Molcan. If he plays Molcan, that's also going to be a very tricky match for Shelton. Obviously, Shelton can overpower a guy like Molcan, but he's probably going to have to play some grinded out type points. Will he be able to do that? I don't know. We'll see. Guys, post your picks in the comments. Would love to hear from you. And our round of 16 records, we were 5-3, so pretty good for us, bouncing back from that 2-2 day. Pretty happy about that. Hopefully we can carry it into the quarterfinals. And as always, guys, thanks again for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, share your picks in the comments, share the video. We will have a video out every single day covering the Munich Open matches and going through the matches the next day and the day after. Looking forward to that. We also have a video out on the Barcelona Open, so definitely check that out to keep up on everything tennis. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys in the next video.